On a sweltering Thursday morning in Fall River, Massachusetts, the summer air hung heavy, thick with the scent of ripe fruit and the faint tang of the Taunton River. It was August 4th, 1892. The Borden house at 92 2nd Street looked like any other in the neighborhood. 2 stories of neat white clapboard, shutters primly framing the windows, lace curtains drawn just enough to keep the morning glare at bay. Inside, however, would unfold one of the most infamous double murders in American history. A mystery that has endured for over 130 years. Whispered about in parlors, dissected in courtrooms, and turned into riot for children skipping games. It is the story of 2 bodies, a locked house, and a woman named Lizzie Borden, whose name would become forever linked to an axe. It began quietly. Andrew Borden, the patriarch of the family, left for work as usual that morning. He was a stern, frugal man, a self-made success in the world of property and finance. He owned rental properties, managed a bank, and held significant wealth. Though you wouldn't know it from his modest home and plain furnishings, Andrew believed in saving, not showing. His wife, Abby Borden, was busy with household chores. She was not Lizzie's mother, but her stepmother, and their relationship was strained at best. Lizzie, 32 years old, and her older sister Emma, 41, had never fully accepted Abby. They resented what they saw as Abby's growing influence over their father, and particularly her involvement in property dealings that they felt should belong to them. The house was tense that week. Everyone had been unwell, stomach ailments, nausea. At the time, it was blamed on leftover mutton stew that had been reheated several times in the summer heat. But later, whispers would suggest poisoning. On that morning, Emma was away visiting friends. Bridget Sullivan, the Borden's live-in maid, had been ordered to clean windows despite feeling sick. She muttered to herself in her Irish brogue as she carried buckets of water outside, the sun already baking the street. Lizzie was in and out of the kitchen, calm, composed, wearing a light summer dress. She claimed she had been ironing handkerchiefs and later went to the barn to look for lead sinkers to go fishing. Around 9:30 a.m., Abby Borden went upstairs to make the bed in the guest room, a room recently occupied by Lizzie and Emma's visiting uncle, John Morse. What happened next is shrouded in the quiet horror of sudden violence. If you imagine the scene, Abby fluffing pillows, smoothing sheets, and then the sudden approach of a figure, silent on the upstairs carpet, an axe raised high, and then the crash of steel on bone. The first blow was likely fatal, struck from behind. Abby collapsed face down on the floor between the bed and the bureau, but the attacker didn't stop. The axe rose and fell again, and again, until 19 blows had reduced the back of her head to a ruin of hair, flesh, and shattered skull. And then silence. Downstairs, Bridget heard nothing unusual. Lizzie would later say she, too, was unaware of what had happened to her stepmother. Just before 11 o'clock a.m., Andrew returned from his morning errands. He tried the front door, but it was locked, a common precaution. Bridget came to let him in, but the door stuck, and she cursed under her breath as she fumbled with the key. From upstairs, she heard Lizzie laugh a strange, abrupt sound. Later, she would say she found it odd, though in court, she wasn't sure if she'd imagined it. Andrew came in, removed his shoes, he was meticulous about such things, and lay down on the sofa in the sitting room. He stretched out, hands folded on his chest, eyes closing briefly in the oppressive heat. Minutes later, death came again. The attacker stood over him, axe in hand. The first blow landed above his left eye, slicing through bone and brain. The force was enough to spray blood and tissue onto the wall and the picture frame above the sofa. More blows followed, 10 in all, hacking his face into something barely recognizable. One eye was split cleanly in 2. It was over in seconds. Bridget was upstairs in her attic room when Lizzie's voice called out, "Maggie, come down quick. Father's dead. Somebody came in and killed him." Bridget ran down to find Lizzie standing in the kitchen doorway, pale but oddly composed. Lizzie sent her to fetch Dr. Bowen, the family physician. Within minutes, neighbors gathered. Police arrived soon after, followed by Dr. Bowen. He found Andrew's body cooling on the sofa, the wounds still oozing. Upstairs, officers discovered Abby in the guest room, her blood dark and congealed, showing she'd been dead for over an hour. There was no sign of forced entry. The house had been locked, and so suspicion turned inward. The investigation focused quickly on Lizzie. She had been in the house during both murders. She claimed she hadn't seen or heard anything, yet her account shifted in small ways under questioning. First saying she was in the barn during her father's murder, then in the kitchen, then back in the barn again. Witnesses spoke of tension between Lizzie and Abby. Others noted Lizzie's calm demeanor almost too calm. In the hours after the murders, then came the matter of the dress. 2 days after the killings, Bridget saw Lizzie burning a blue dress in the kitchen stove. Lizzie claimed it was stained with paint and ruined. Prosecutors believed it had been stained with blood. At the inquest, Lizzie's answers were sharp, sometimes evasive. She denied killing her father and stepmother, but there was no clear alternative suspect. John Moss, her visiting uncle, had an alibi. Bridget had been outside. No strangers were seen entering or leaving. By the end of the year, Lizzie was arrested. Her trial in June 1893 was a media sensation. One of the first in America to be widely covered with courtroom sketches, daily press bulletins, and reporters from across the country. The prosecution argued she had motive: resentment toward Abby, fear of losing her inheritance, anger over the family's frugality. They said the murders were planned and carried out with cold precision. The defense countered that the crime was physically demanding, bloody, and likely committed by a man. They noted the absence of blood on Lizzie's person, surely. They argued the killer would have been drenched. They also attacked the police work. The search of the house was sloppy. Evidence went missing, and most damning for the prosecution, the murder weapon was never definitively identified. Several axes and hatchets were found in the cellar, but none could be tied conclusively to the killings. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for just 90 minutes. Lizzie Borden was acquitted. She left the courthouse a free woman, but her reputation was forever marked. She and Emma moved into a larger house on the hill, Fall River's wealthy district. Lizzie lived there until her death in 1927. She never married, never spoke publicly about the murders again. Children continued to chant. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. Of course, the rhyme exaggerated, but the image stuck. To this day, no one else has ever been charged. The case remains officially unsolved. Was Lizzie a cunning killer who beat the system, or an innocent woman caught in a web of suspicion, victimized by public opinion? We may never know. Thank you for watching Crimes Through Time. If you found this story haunting, hit the like button and subscribe for more dark chapters from history. And tell us in the comments, do you think Lizzie Borden was guilty? Or does the real killer still hide in the shadows of Fall River? We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay safe,